All right, let's get right into it. When you look at a map, Australia can seem, well, tempting. It's this huge continent, and you might think it's ripe for the taking. But, as we're about to see, the reality for any potential invader is nothing short of a strategic and logistical nightmare.
This right here, is the whole ball game. It's about the massive difference between how Australia looks on a planner's screen and what it is in the cold, hard light of military reality. One map seems to invite you in, the other one just laughs in your face.
So let's start with that first deceptive map, shall we? The one that shows all those wide open beaches and seemingly vulnerable cities right there on the coast. It's an illusion, a powerful one, that has tempted strategists for a very long time.
And this is where we have to shift our whole perspective. An attacker isn't dealing with some simple island nation they can just hop onto. No. They are confronting a fortress continent, surrounded by thousands of kilometers of a massive, unforgiving ocean moat.
And this brings us to the main villain of our story. It's called the tyranny of logistics, and it's a force that is way more powerful than any army. It's what dictates every single move an invader can, or more often, simply cannot make. In this theater, logistics is king.
Right, so before an invader can even dream of fighting on Australian soil, they first have to survive the journey just to get there. And that first battle, the one fought across that vast ocean, is designed to wear them down, expose them, and maybe even break them before they ever arrive.
I mean, just put yourself in the shoes of the invasion commander for a sec. Your huge fleet, it can't hide out there. For days and days, you're just a slow-moving target on a completely empty horizon, burning through fuel you can't replace, long before you even get a glimpse of the coast.
And this is where the geography itself starts to fight back. The very seas an attacker has to cross, they're a trap. These shallow approaches are just awful for hiding submarines, and they literally funnel the surface ships into predictable channels. Basically, into pre-sighted kill zones.
Okay, so let's say you get closer, the map's deception just keeps on going. What looks like an invader's greatest strength, all that coastline, actually turns into a crippling logistical weakness.
You see a number like 34,000 kilometers, and you think, perfect, I've got endless options for a landing. I can go anywhere. But that is the very essence of the trap. Because here's the reality check. To supply a modern army, you can't just land on a random beach. You need a real deep water port. You need roads, you need railways, you need infrastructure. And it turns out Australia has very, very few of those, especially up in the north, where you'd likely want to start. This one fact changes the entire game. It funnels any invasion force towards just a handful of predictable spots. So the most logical target for the attacker becomes the defender's most prepared, most heavily watched kill zone. Any elements of surprise, poof, gone.
Okay, but let's just say you pull it off. You defy all the odds. You cross the ocean, you survive the approach, and you actually secure a beachhead. Congratulations. Your biggest problem is no longer the Australian army. It is now Australia itself.
You know those huge empty spaces you see on the map? They're not a vulnerability for the defender. No way. They are the continent's most powerful weapon. It's a landscape that literally acts like a giant sponge, designed to just soak up your resources, drain your momentum, and grind your entire army to a halt.
So what might look like an advance inland is actually just a step-by-step logistical collapse waiting to happen. Every single kilometer you push forward stretches your supply lines thinner and thinner across a landscape of brutal heat, abrasive dust, and just sheer mind-numbing distance. That supply line becomes a fragile thread that the defender can just snip whenever they want.
To put that 3,000 kilometers in perspective, that's like driving from Paris to Moscow, but on one single totally exposed highway. Every bullet, every bandage, every single drop of fuel has to make that trip. The tyranny of logistics is now completely in charge.
So let's flip this whole thing around. Let's look at how the defender uses this brutal geography to build a layered modern fortress, one that's designed from the ground up for long-range denial.
The fight starts right here, 3,000 kilometers out. Australia can see an approaching fleet days in advance, long before that fleet has any idea it's being watched. It turns the sheer distance an invader has to cross into the very first line of defense, a massive engagement zone.
And once that incredible radar network lights you up, these are the tools that get to work. They're all designed to punish an approaching fleet from ranges where it just can't fight back effectively. And get this, the main targets aren't even the warships. They're the slow, fat, vulnerable tankers and transport ships, the logistical lifeblood of the whole invasion.
This right here
This is what home field advantage looks like when your home field is an entire continent. Every single challenge for the invader, distance, fuel, time, it all gets systematically turned into a tactical strength for the defender. It's a completely asymmetrical fight, and it's all by design.
And this is absolutely crucial. You're not just fighting Australia. Australia doesn't fight alone. Powerful alliances like AUKUS with the US and UK, and the long-standing ANZUS Treaty with the US, plus decades of training together, it all means an attack on Australia is basically an attack on a powerful global coalition.
And, history really backs all of this up. Back in 1942, Imperial Japan was at the absolute peak of its military power. They studied an invasion of Australia, and they concluded it was simply impossible. The logistics were insane. So if it was too hard for them back then, the challenge has only grown exponentially today.
So what does this all boil down to? It means that while a physical, boots-on-the-ground invasion is pretty much a fantasy, the real threats Australia faces look very different. They look a lot more like long-range missile strikes, cyber attacks, and maritime blockades, all things designed to coerce, not to conquer. So ultimately, here's why all this matters. Australia's unique geography fundamentally shapes the entire strategic situation in the Indo-Pacific. It forces any adversary to think in terms of pressure, not occupation. And that makes the continent this uniquely resilient sanctuary and a vital staging ground for its allies.
So yeah, the map, the distances, the modern weapons, they all tell us that a conventional invasion of Australia is basically a fool's errand. But that reality leaves all of us with this final, much trickier question for strategists and for all of us to think about.